It's JT, and welcome to the Believe Podcasting Network. This is NFL Hits, and it's a somber podcast this week. As we jump in, we put this podcast together to cover breaking news. And when breaking news happens, we want to be not the first, and this is a good example why, but we want to be on the scenes to try to help you along the way. Muki Hawkins, kind enough to join us, the sports director at Power 96.5 FM, a Bills insider, also a teammate here on Believe. And Mookie, let's begin. I was on the air last night, live on Sirius XM when this happened in real time. And I was starting off my show and I was getting my producers in my ears telling me what was happening. And we had the ability to listen to the feed, the play-by-play feed of Westwood One. So I was one of the first guys on radio who knew this was a cardiac situation instead of a situation of a neck or a stinger. When did you realize that this was more than just a hit or a potential concussion, or this was so serious that they were working on his heart?
Well, when they came back from commercial break and, the ambulance is still out there, you still see, the players and everybody is around, like the circle got a little tighter the second time around when they came back from off, commercial break there. And I was like, well, what's going on? So I wasn't at the game, unfortunately, but, I reached out to, my colleagues that are there in the press box, and then that's when I was told what was going on.
Now, you have a little bit of a background with him. You go back with him to his Pittsburgh college years. Tell me about Damar Hamlin and the type of human being he is before we get into his football skills.
Wow. What can you say bad about the guy? He's just a great human being, very honest guy. You would want to, model yourself after Damar Hamlin, just the type of person that he is. He always put others first before himself. The type of guy that would get you the shirt off his back, when he don't have anything to give himself. But, hey, it's yours. That's just the type of guy he is. Very caring, kind-hearted human being.
Now, I've been on the radio a bunch since this happened last night, earlier today on my show in Las Vegas, and I'm starting to praise all the people that were involved at the stadium, the paramedics, the Bills team doctors, how they were able to save his life. I think when this story got a little bit out of control, Mookie, was when people started tweeting, which we'll get to, people trying to make assumptions because they didn't know what was going on in real time. And now that we can get away from it for a few hours, there's no doubt that there were people on the field who were giving him CPR in the process of saving his life. And that's what I think the Bills teammates saw when they started to get real emotional and started breaking down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what those players had to witness. You just knew that game wasn't going to go on, but obviously we'll get into that. But to see their reaction, live on national TV, to see Josh Allen, to see Stephon Diggs, to see Tre'Davious White, to see Ed Oliver in tears. And you don't see Ed Oliver that emotional unless something is terribly wrong. To see Ed Oliver in tears the way that he was handling that situation just led me to know that something was terribly wrong, that was going on down there. Just their reaction just had me, I was speechless to find out what was really happening, what my eyes were actually witnessing. So for those guys to be there, to hear actually what those paramedics were really saying at that point in time is kind of horrific, JT.
What I thought was interesting too, just from a media perspective, as we're both covering this story, is that how a lot of the media didn't know what was going on. It wasn't their fault. They didn't have sources who were referees on cell phones telling them what happened. They didn't have people in the tunnel. So Adam Schefter, Mike Florio, Ian Rappaport, the kings of our business who break news, they had nothing. So then everyone on Twitter starts firing up, wondering what's going on. And then you started to feel, could the game be played or not? And that's when it got troublesome to me, when people started forgetting about this young man who was in a cardiac arrest and started wondering about who's warming up. Joe Burrow's making some throws. Do they have a few minutes? Are they going to play the game? I found that horrible, terrible to see in real time, not only when I was on the air, while I was looking on my phone and trying to keep up with the tweets here. It felt like chaos, but there wasn't chaos in the stadium, Mookie. The fans were great. They were attentive. They were waiting for direction. And I think the broadcasters inside the stadium knew he was in very grave danger at that point.
Absolutely. When the ambulance drove off and they finally got, his heartbeat restored and they were able to get him in the car and into the ambulance, Coach McDermott had put another prayer, so that's one, like, okay, this is really serious. They're having another prayer after, they already just had a prayer or whatever was going on in that melee right there. And then, when the guys went to the bench, you saw Stephon Diggs trying to encourage guys to, hey, let's go, let's play for our brother. But then you see Josh Allen just completely out of it on the sideline, just sitting on the bench. So I'm like, this game is not going to be played. And then you see Coach McDermott go over to the referees, and he had his hand covered over his mouth, and that's when you know. But I looked dead into Coach McDermott's eyes. You can see his eyes just turning red and welling up. And that right there, and I knew that, that game was not going to continue. And then Coach Taylor came over and, they, decided that they weren't going to play the game. I mean, where I think that people are deciding where that the NFL said they got 5 minutes to play, I think it's just natural protocol. When something of that magnitude happens. The referee, when the avalanche dries off, referees are always saying, okay, coach, get you guys ready. You got 5 minutes. It did come from New York. I think it was just more of a referee's protocol of what naturally happens in that situation.
Right. But,
Coach McDermott said, you know what, this is bigger than that. I spoke with our captains and they're in no condition to play. Their mindset is not, here right now for those guys to continue to play the game. And, that's when New York stepped in and, they did the right thing.
And Mookie, the right thing here, again, this doesn't happen and the league has got to make arrangements. And I just pray for Damar Hamlin because I know he's in good care now. The amount of time they worked with him on the field, they got him to the hospital in Cincinnati. He's under great care. This is very fluid. By the time we post this podcast, there could be a statement from the hospital or the Bills again. But let's talk about another uncomfortable topic moving forward. What happens to this game? Because this is all these games that were played this year, players put their body and life and their brains on the line to play. And all those games are behind us. Now we're at the end of the season, and we're not talking about a non-playoff team versus a wild card team. We're talking about three teams. Kansas City, who plays where I am in Vegas this Saturday. They were flexed into Saturday. Then you got Buffalo and Cincinnati, all alive for the 1 seed. And all of these teams played their asses off this year to get the 1 seed. So as much as we pray and we care about Damar Hamlin, and that's the bigger story, how do we get around to football again and figuring out what happened to this game and how they make it up?
Hey, JT, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I don't think this game will be played. But how can you decide a winner, right? I mean, obviously Cincinnati's was up at the point in time of the injury, but hey, it's early in the game, and Bills is really like a second half team.
Yeah.
So how can you say who was to win? If it was me, I would just say, hey, you can't say one team win and another team loses because of the implications and what's at stake. What you could do and say, hey, we're going to say this is a tie. All right, we're going to just say this is a tie. Cincinnati, you get a tie. Bills, you get a tie. And, we move on the next week. I mean, that's the only simple solution, I would suggest. I know Kansas City may be mad at that, but I mean, hey, that's what it is. I mean, that's where I feel that, hey, this game is a wash, but you can't say, you can't not give a team something, because then that pushes Kansas City to the 1 spot. So I would just say this game will end in a tie due to the circumstances, and you move on to next week.
The reason it's such a big topic, and again, we put the player first, but when you watch this podcast, other people, and they watch it a week from now or 3 days from now, and they're hearing our discussion here, which is in real time, hoping that, Damar Hamlin is physically prepared in his life to play football again. I don't think anybody should argue, Mookie, about the decision. Whatever decision they have, as you said, the tie would sound smart to me. Just wipe the game out like it didn't exist. You just, instead of having a 17-game schedule, those two teams have 16. You seed it the way you're going to. The NFL decides on that. They talk with Andy Reid. They talk with all the head coaches and say, this is what we're doing. I hope nobody complains, because last night it was a beautiful thing to see those Bills and Cincinnati fans come together at the hospital,
Yeah.
walk out of that game and understand the importance of life instead of the result of a football game. And I hope people remember our conversation going forward, that whatever the decision is, it was a really tough decision made by the league and Roger Goodell, and we all got to live with it.
Yeah, we definitely got to live with it. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the game. That's just the business that these guys signed up to play for, and you have to move on. It's just a tough thing to deal with. Very unfortunate, and but to get over it, you have to move on. And
Yeah.
our prayers goes along with Damar Hamlin. I was a wreck last night. I was a wreck. My phone was going haywire. I was a wreck just because of what I've witnessed, and the person that Damar Hamlin is. No player deserves that, none whatsoever. This goes back to Kevin Everett. When he was paralyzed. In the Bills game, and the miracle of him that he was able to. Right now he's live and well and he's walking. We pray. That Damar Hamlin can do the exact same thing. And then we'll worry about football and his career afterwards. But right now, his life is way more important than the game of football.
No, I was thinking last night in real time while this was happening, you want to make sure you get the right information. So when I was on Sirius XM last night, I treated it like a medical emergency show, not a sports show. How do we get this kid the proper medical attention, save his life, knowing it's a cardiac situation, and then cancel the game, will you? Cancel the game, get off the game, and then we find out the Bills fly home. Some players stayed back. And then we found out earlier today that the NFL put out a statement and they won't play this game this weekend. But the Bills got to go play the Patriots. Cincinnati's got another game here. You look at Baltimore and what's going to happen. All those players are going to be deeply affected. I would assume the Bills more because it's their teammate and brother. And we're going to get on to football. It won't be this game being played, but it'll be another one. And that's really what sports is all about, isn't it? You stop, you pray, you hope that someone's okay. And then as a business, Mookie, you got to get back to playing again and entertaining the fans. And I hope all the fans understand the power of these athletes because they are putting their lives on the line for our entertainment.
And it definitely is. Maybe some that may need some counseling, from what they're witnessed out there. We don't truly know. The Bills didn't give us, no media availability they due to them circumstances, and I respect that. I've reached out to a few players, and they're dealing with it the best way they can. I can tell you that, JT. They're dealing with it the best way they can. And, right now their concerns and thoughts are with their brother and teammate, Damar Hamlin, right now. Football is on the back burner in their minds. But again, hey, they do have a team they have to prepare for this week, so it's the nature of the business. It's rough to even for that to come out of my mouth right now. But, you have to move forward in that regard and, just pray that, Damar Hamlin can, get better and be able to, live his life. We worry about football later. So I want to say to the Bills medical staff and the Cincinnati's medical staff, if it wasn't for them being proactive and reacting how they reacted, because they didn't have the defibrillator. The Bills, they were the road team. So they didn't have the defibrillator. So they administered CPR as much as they could. And in 30 seconds, man, the Cincinnati Bengals medical staff had the defibrillator, and they were on it. They were on it. If it wasn't for those two medical staffs doing what they did, this could be a different conversation right now, JT. So I just want to, give credit where credit is due first and foremost to those two medical staffs on, being very assertive and, making sure that Damar Hamlin, had a restored heartbeat, because if they not had that defibrillator, I don't know if the Bills probably would have played the remainder of the season at this point.
Yeah, you make a really good point. We got to try to find the positives that come out of that. I said today, and I think by the next 2 days, every NFL franchise will be running through this drill at their practice facility or their stadium. They're going to have that drill, live drill. Coaches and owners are going to demand it. Everyone's going to be tight. Everyone's going to know how to do this in case it happens again. That's what happens with this. And then I think that everybody's going to understand the importance the next time they go to a tailgate in a game. I'll tell you, Mookie, I'm deeply affected because I work for an NFL team, and I don't take it for granted when I go to a game, a home game, every time I go. I always know when those players come out of the tunnel, anything could happen, but we've never seen anything like that. I think the whole world is reacting. This is an international story. I think the whole world's coming together on this, and I just hope and pray that something positive comes out because I want to see Damar Hamlin not only come through this, but play again and be out there for his teammates again because you could tell this guy's loved. You know him. You cover the team, and he seems to be really special. He's a special young man who has his whole life in front of him.
Absolutely. I mean, he's only 24 years old.
Yeah.
Going into his second season, and I mean, just understanding what a true pro is early in his career, just speaks volume to the person that he is. I mean, he started, that toy drive while playing at the University of Pittsburgh, and for someone to, understand who he is trying to be a role model and understanding the platform that he has to be an impact to the youth. It just speaks volumes. And this year for Christmas, he was only looking to raise $2,500, so undeserved kids in the city or where he's from, in McKees Rocks, PA, can have, a fun Christmas. Right now, it's over $4 million. And, man, that's just awesome, the way the donations is pouring into his foundation. We urge everybody to keep doing that. Chasing M's Foundation, Community Center, please, keep donating.
Nicely said. Mookie, thanks for doing this on NFL Hits. Everybody told me you're the guy that we needed to talk to, and I'm happy you were available. Godspeed. Thanks for coming on.
Anytime, JT. Appreciate you.